step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
We have pondered our place amongst the stars since the dawn of humankind. We've looked at the stars with wonder and amazement, their glow guiding our travel for centuries. The more we learn about our universe, the more questions we have.
I'm Emily Calandrelli, and today you'll be following me behind the gates on this exclusive bus tour of Kennedy Space Center. Our journey will take us past active facilities and end at the visitor complex's own Apollo Saturn V Center.
But before we begin this journey, just like every NASA mission, our #1 goal is to return home safely. So always stay seated while the bus is in motion. Please, no food or drinks on the bus with the exception of water. Please keep conversation to a minimum so others may hear and enjoy the tour. No photography is permitted at the security gates, but there will be plenty of photo opportunities during the tour.
This rocket that you'll see standing tall in front of KSC's badging station is the Mercury Redstone rocket. It represents NASA's earliest efforts to send humans into space. These Redstone rockets were formerly ballistic missiles provided to NASA by the U.S. Army. In October of 1958, NASA formally organized Project Mercury with a mission to investigate man's reaction to this new environment and safely recover the capsule and its pilot. Man rating for human spaceflight on what was previously a ballistic missile was no easy task. After several modifications and test flights, a Mercury capsule carrying Ham, a chimpanzee, was successfully launched and recovered on January 31st, 1961. Just months later, on May 5th, astronaut Alan Shepard launched on a Mercury Redstone rocket, becoming the first American in space.
Hi, I'm Janet Petro, and welcome to NASA's John F. Kennedy Space Center, where NASA astronauts have ventured forth on flights of exploration since the 1960s. And what an exciting time to visit our multi-user spaceport. Through our Commercial Crew program, we are sending astronauts to the International Space Station from American soil for the first time since the Space Shuttle program ended in 2011. We're continuing to launch new research experiments and supplies to the space station with our commercial resupply services and launching the most technologically advanced scientific instruments to date into space through our launch services program. This all culminates in our ultimate mission, the Artemis Program, where NASA will return to the moon, this time with the first woman and first person of color, and continue on to Mars. In all our history, there's been one common theme woven throughout our DNA. It's our insatiable desire to explore beyond our home planet in our never-ending quest to expand our knowledge of the universe. As you venture behind the gates, you'll find a community of the most talented, dedicated, motivated workforce anywhere in the world who believe in the unlimited potential of space exploration. This is an active spaceport where new things are happening every day. You never know what you might see, so enjoy your tour.
You are now approaching the Vehicle Assembly Building, or as NASA calls it, the VAB. It is one of the largest buildings in the world by volume, and is the place where NASA completes the final assembly of its rockets before launch. The sheer scale of this building is hard to grasp, even when you're right next to it.
Do you ever feel really small when you think about space? What about when you're standing next to a skyscraper or a really big bridge? Well, I feel about as small as an ant right now. inside the vehicle assembly building, trying to grasp how large it really is in here. It has 4 bays. Each bay has 2 large horizontal doors below it and 7 smaller vertically opening doors above it, tall enough to fit the world's largest rocket through. In fact, these are the largest doors in the world.
It was built in the 1960s for the Apollo program. Every Saturn V rocket that sent humans to the moon was assembled right here. Every space shuttle mission also assembled within these same walls. After the space shuttle program, a major renovation to the inside of this building began to accommodate NASA's next generation of rockets, the Space Launch System, or SLS. Lockheed Martin has developed a capsule called Orion that will sit atop the SLS rocket. This capsule is designed to facilitate human exploration of the moon and eventually Mars. The first flown Orion capsule from Exploration Flight Test 1, EFT-1, sits inside the NASA Now exhibit at the Visitor Complex. This uncrewed test flight launched atop the Delta IV Heavy rocket in 2014. The 4.5-hour flight took the spacecraft around the Earth 2 times before splashing down in the Pacific Ocean, where it was recovered and eventually brought back to KSC. Developed by Lockheed Martin, this rocket-powered tower, designed to sit atop the Orion crew module, is built to quickly propel astronauts away from the rocket in case of an emergency. The Launch Abort system underwent a critical flight test in July 2019 called Ascent Abort 2. It launched atop a U.S. Air Force booster carrying a boilerplate, or non-functional, version of Orion, and successfully performed the abort maneuvers, proving that the LAS will be ready for its first launch, Artemis 1. Construction of the VAB required 65,000 cubic yards of concrete, 45,000 steel beams, 1 million steel bolts amounting to almost 100,000 tons of steel. Notice the flag painted on the outside of the VAB? It's the size of a 21-story building. The blue section alone is the size of an NBA basketball court. Each star is 6 feet across, and each red and white stripe is wide enough for this bus to drive down. And the entire VAB? It's so huge that the Roman Colosseum would fit on the roof with room to spare for a parking lot. By volume, the VAB can fit 3.5 Empire State Buildings, and it would take 250 billion ping pong balls to fill it.
I'm inside the LCC with Charlie Blackwell Thompson, NASA's first female launch director. Now, Charlie, can you tell us a little bit more about what a launch director does?
Absolutely. The launch director's job during the planning phase is to ensure that you have everything in place that you need to safely and successfully launch the Artemis missions. The folks that sit in this room on launch day, they have a tough job, and that's to determine if the flight and the ground systems are go or no go.
Yeah, makes sense. So I hear that you're going to be the launch director for the inaugural flight of SLS with Artemis 1. Can you tell us a little bit more about the mission of the Artemis program?
Well, if you think about all that we did during the Apollo program, how amazing that was. It seems so appropriate that as we return to the lunar surface, we return to the moon, that we go under the banner of Artemis, the twin sister of Apollo. And while there are similarities in our program, there are also differences. This time our trip to the moon will be on a brand new rocket known as the Space Launch System, or SLS, carrying the crews in the Orion spacecraft.
What is the goal or purpose of sending humans to the moon again?
Well, the moon is a treasure trove of science and discovery. And so there's so much to learn from the moon. We're still learning from what the samples we gathered during the Apollo program. The beauty of what we're doing today is that instead of going for a short trip, we're going to stay. And what we learn, we can apply to deep space destinations and other space travel.
Very exciting. So I know that the SLS is coming together right next door at the Vehicle Assembly Building. What work is left to be done here at Launch Control?
Well, in launch control, we're finishing up our preparations for launch. Our software is nearly done. We're working on our procedures. Our team is training. And so we're really finishing up those last few steps as we push toward launch.
Charlie, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us today. I know that we are all very excited about the future of the Artemis program.
Absolutely. Thank you. And go Artemis. Artemis is actually named for the twin sister of Apollo.
But why, some say, the moon? Why choose this as our goal? And they may well ask, why climb the highest mountain? Why, 35 years ago, fly the Atlantic? Why does Rice play Texas? We choose to go to the moon. We choose to go to the moon. We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard.
When President John F. Kennedy made this speech in 1962, he set in motion an era of discovery that would change humankind forever. 7 years after he spoke these ambitious words, the world watched as Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin became the first people to walk on the moon. The achievement of the men and women who worked on the space program in these early decades of NASA helps propel the technology we use every day. NASA and the thriving private space industry at Kennedy Space Center today are the living legacy of their story. As we arrive at the Apollo Saturn V Center to learn more about that historic era, get ready to step back into a time when NASA had everything to prove to a nation focused on one goal: to be the first country to land a person on the moon.
Please check around your seat to make sure you have all of your belongings before departing.